welcome. This is Adam Berner with the Berner Law Mediation Group, and we have here again Shireen Meistrich. And Shireen's going to be talking about creating a divorce narrative. And before we do that, Shireen, why don't you talk a little about your work, your experience?
Sure. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for having me. I am a therapist by profession, and my office is in Fair Lawn. I work predominantly with the divorcing community in a therapeutic role, either individual therapy, family therapy, reunification therapy, in a coaching role in terms of collaborative coaching, and I help families do parenting time mediations.
Okay. So with that in mind, let's talk a little about the divorce narrative component. I typically tell couples, especially my mediation couples, and typically in the first mediation session, that if they haven't already, they should give some thought about about creating a divorce narrative, a kind of a divorce tagline. That will certainly be helpful for the children, but not just for the children, but for the friends, family, inner circles, and outer circles. So people have a sense of kind of what's going on. They don't have to guess. They don't have to walk on eggshells. And in my sense, it really helps the family as a whole when the divorcing couple is able to do that. So let me start by asking you your views about the value of a couple creating their divorce narrative and how it could impact a family's divorce and post-divorce life as well.
Sure. I think it's not only valuable, I think actually it's critical, because I think the way a family steps out into their community or to their family and friends sets the tone, not only for the support system that will hopefully come forward and support the family as a whole, but often it sort of takes the awkwardness out of the conversation. That if you have a narrative, if you will, that you're sharing with your community, friends, and family, it gives the statement that we're welcome to. You could approach us. It doesn't have to be something that feels awkward, but we're also putting some dignity to it. We're putting some language to it. It's respectful, and it sort of sets this tone that this is how we plan to proceed. And we need your support to be able to do that. So it sort of invites people in.
Mm-hmm. So what should be the components of a divorce narrative?
I think the components of a divorce narrative is essentially, what are we as a couple saying to friends and family community? What do we agree as sort of our story? Where do we want to draw the line, in terms of our personal intimacies of our marriage versus how we're going to express that to the community? So there's a crafting that goes with it. There's usually a reason that gets applied in part of your divorce narrative, why you're choosing to separate or divorce. There's usually a component of how you intend to proceed forward. So again, an invitation that we intend to do this in a transparent, open, respectful manner. We're mindful of our children, friends, and family. So there's like a two or three parts to it. It's their story that they're comfortable with, and it's their intentions as a family.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how important is it that the couple would get together to craft that, where they're in agreement?
Well, I think it can only be crafted together, right? Otherwise, we have two different divorce narratives, running about, and that creates, I think, even further confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then a welcoming for perhaps discussion about the family.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's critical that the parents come together to discuss it and create it. And that in and of itself is an art, because what you want to accomplish is something that's crafted and created that satisfies both people. And that's where I think it can get tricky and navigate some tricky waters. And you're talking about language and presentation, but it can't really be complete until both people sign off on it. So that might be where the work really sort of becomes a little bit more heavy lifting, but I think valuable to do that heavy lifting, because in the end, they have a statement and a product that befits both of their needs.
And what happens if they disagree? Well, one person wants to say, yeah, I want to tell everyone that you had an affair and that's why, this is ending, or whatever the reason might be. What happens if they disagree? Obviously, the one who had the affair is not going to want to share that with friends and family.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what the disagreement is about. But there's usually, I mean, I've never worked with a couple that haven't been able to do it if they're interested in doing it. So if it's so contentious, it could be 2 lines, but it's 2 lines that everybody sort of agreed upon, and it's it doesn't go into the details of why we're doing this. But there's often sort of language that you can settle on that feels right. In the case that you're raising of a betrayal case, that feels right to both people. And so you can get there, but if there's positional resentment around what the statement feels like, it's just going to take longer.
Mm-hmm. And should a reason for the divorce be included in that, especially if people might be asking, they're surprised by it?
Yeah, I mean, a reason is usually what people ask, right? It's like why we're getting a divorce? How come? So I think the narrative should include something, because it's sort of an invitation to come forward and support us, but it's also an invitation to respect our boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We're sort of giving you our reason for what we're doing and how we're moving forward. We're giving you the way in which we intend to do so. So it sort of fits 2 categories. So I do think there should be some acknowledgement. Again, it doesn't have to be detailed, but it should have some attribution to why the decision was made.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of recommendations, are there kind of best practices in terms of how to communicate with others? I mean, I don't know if it's practical for everyone to make a phone call to friends and family. Maybe so. There's all different modes of communication now. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, I think that is very personal to the couple. I mean, I've seen videos that have gone out. I've seen written statements on emails. I've seen group texts. I've seen different venues. Friends get an email, family gets a phone call, or depending on where everybody lives, a group, video chat. So it really depends. The mode in which they present their final product is so personal. A lot of people just have it in sort of in their back pocket. When we come across friends and family at the school, this is what we agree that we'll say. This is what. So a lot of it is mostly verbal, but when it's like very intentional, I think that's a very personal decision on how it gets distributed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Last question that comes to mind is in terms of the children. What is being conveyed to the children? Should there be a specific message different than what is being conveyed to other friends and family?
Well, I would hesitate on having some different messaging with internal with the family and external with the community, just because you don't know what the children might hear back from friends, family, and peers. So I think you want to be careful about coordinating and making sure that there's a similar message, but it is 2 different things. I work with parents to how do we disclose to the children that we're getting a divorce is a very different exercise than what is our divorce narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And again, how do we disclose to our children that we're getting a divorce? Very, very intimate, very fact sensitive in terms of the family, the makeup, the comfort level, the design around that. And that's just a whole different exercise for parents to be mindful of. But ultimately, the divorce narrative will match the disclosure to the children.
Mm-hmm. Great. That makes a lot of sense. And from what I've seen, it really helps get a couple in the same place, and helps the whole family and the dynamics within the community. So that makes a lot of sense. Anything else you want to add? And if not, since this is what you do, helping couples develop, if there's nothing else you want to add on this, why don't you just talk about how couples might be able to reach you to tap into the expertise that you offer them and their families?
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I would add, Adam, is that it's a very emotional process. It's quite painful at times to sort of spend the energy and effort in creating a divorce narrative or even a disclosure to the children. I think what parents find very helpful is that there's some emotional processing to the work, that they can explore, that they can ask one another. So there's some, I would call it an added benefit of some attempt at closure,
Hmm.
and a start at uncoupling. So I think the exercise, when people make the effort to do it, they see and they experience the added bonus of the work that, that it goes into just in the creation of it. And often I see parents reciting it, repeating it, choreographing it so it feels comfortable to them. And even saying it out loud has an emotional experience to it as well. And I just think that those are the benefits that probably people don't necessarily recognize going into it, but experience it once it's complete.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And how can people find you?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So my office is in Fair Lawn, and people can either email me at smeistrich, MSW at optonline.net. And Meistrich is Meistrich, or they can call my office at 201-791-1560.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shireen, for your time sharing, for your expertise. And I look forward to running some questions by you down the road for some other interesting and challenging topics.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Adam.
Okay.